Days Amud for the 6th day of the month of Nisan. We are almost at Chag Pesach, just a few days to go. And we are holding at the bottom of Daf Hey Amud Aleph, a couple of lines from the bottom, and today's Amud is Shekalim Hey Amud Beis. We left off 5 lines from the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara is continuing the discussion in the Mishnah with regards to the Bnei Ha'ir that sent their Shekalim off to Yerushalayim, and something happened to those Shekalim. And the Mishnah had told us that in such a case, depending on whether or not the truma was taken from the shkalim, I mean the Kohanim, the Gizbarim had taken the truma in the Beis Hamikdash, that would determine on whether the couriers are going to have to swear to the Bnei Ha'ir or swear to the people managing the Beis Hamikdash finances. Says the Gemara as follows: Amar Reb Lazar. Says Rabbi Lazar, de Rabbi Shimon. This Mishnah must be the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Why? The Rabbi Shimon, because it is Rabbi Shimon that says, "Kachim shehu chayv ba'achriyusam ke nechasav hin." Rabbi Shimon is the opinion that says that any kachim that you are liable for, that you are financially obligated in, are still maintain some status as your property. There are two ways. Let's explain. There are two ways of making something hektish. A person can say, Hare ze ola, this is an ola, or a person could say, Hare alai ola, I am obligated in giving an ola, and then designate an animal for that ola. There is a difference between these two things, says Rabbi Shimon, that something that you have made into an ola is now, Hare ze ola, this is now an ola. You are not chayiv if something happens to it, because now it already belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. But a person that says, Hare alai ola, I have to offer an ola, so even though this animal that you have selected has kedusha, has the status of hektish, if something happens to it, you are liable to replace it because you made the obligation on yourself. You said, Hare alai, it's now I am obligated in ola, not that this animal is an ola, that's the payment of my obligation. If something happens to it, then I would not be, then I would still be obligated in. And therefore, this Mishnah must be the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Meaning, Rabbi Shimon is the opinion that says that the messengers have to swear about the shkalim, because since the people in the town are responsible for replacing those shkalim before the if it was stolen before the Trumas Alishka, the shkalim are still in the responsibility of the people of the town, the Bnei Ha'ir. And therefore, this must be Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, I disagree. Says Rabbi Yochanan, that's not necessarily true. Divrei HaKolhi. Maybe everybody agrees to this principle, not just Rabbi Shimon. Why? Because whereas Rabbi Shimon holds that this would be a din da'araisa, that they are chayiv ba'achrayus, and that they're liable to repay if something happens to it, the Rabbanan of the opinion, perhaps, that this is Mishum Shavuos Takana, that the Rabbanan instituted a new Takana, that even though you are not technically Mid'araisa liable for it, you are liable for it Midrabanan, and that's why they have to swear to it. And the Korban Eidah points out why, based on the Gemara Bava Metzia, so that people don't take the hektish lightly. Meaning they don't say, just because it's owned by the Beis Hamikdash, I don't have to be so worried about it. This is Walmart doesn't mind if you take a little bit. It's such a big corporation. What's the big deal? Because people do that, have that psychology. So because of that, the Rabbanan instituted the takana that anytime anything happens, even if you are not strictly speaking chayav for it, you still would have to take a shvua as if you are. Says the Gemara 2 lines from the bottom. Al da'ati de Rabbi Yochanan nicha. This makes good sense according to Rabbi Yochanan. Nishbain ligizbarim, that the messengers are going to have to swear to the gizbarim, to the people that are taking the trumas alishka, the kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash. Ve'im lav, and if not, nishbain libnei ha'ir, and if there hasn't yet been trumas alishka, then they would have to swear to the bnei ha'ir. And then the Bnei Ha'ir are going to have to take an additional set of shkalim in their stead. Meaning, this all makes good sense according to Rabbi Yochanan. Top of Hey Amud Beis, Mishum Shvus Takana, because the Chachamim instituted that you have to take the Shvus Takana. Ella Reb Lazar, but according to Reb Lazar, who said that this is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, Nishbayin lebnei ha'ir hadahi Rabbi Shimon. The fact that the messengers have to swear to the townspeople, to the bnei ha'ir, that makes sense that is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Nishbayin legizbarim, gizbarim ma'aya vitayu. Why would they ever need to take an oath for the gizbarim? According to Rabbi Shimon, this now totally belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. Nobody is chayiv ba'achrayusa. The loss is borne completely by the Beis Hamikdash, by the Beis Hamikdash Incorporated, right? The legal person called Mikdash owns these funds completely. Nobody else is liable for them because they already belong to the Beis Hamikdash. Why would they need to swear at all, according to Rabbi Shimon's opinion, which Rabbi Lazar had said is the opinion of our Mishnah? So the Gemara offers a couple of suggestions here. Suggestion number one is Nishbayin libnei ha'ir b'maimad gizbarim. What the Gemara suggests here is that they are nishba not to the gizbarim, but they are nishba to the bnei ha'ir in the presence of the gizbarim. Meaning, they're going to swear to the bnei ha'ir while the gizbarim are there. The gizbarim have to come, so that they are not suspected of. Meaning, the gizbarim don't suspect that the messengers stole anything. So when they swear to the bnei ha'ir, they never have to swear to the gizbarim. But when they swear to the bnei ha'ir, they would have to swear with the gizbarim present. Inami, alternatively, the reason that they need to that they need the gizbarim present is inami deloi nishvu lehem poshim, so that the gizbarim don't think that they were negligent, meaning that they don't suspect them of theft and they don't suspect them of negligence. Says the Gemara, even though the people in the city have agreed, they have agreed to pay. What happens in a case where something happened to the money and the people of the city say, we agree, we have to give new Shekalim? Do the messengers still need to swear that they didn't steal it or that they were negligent? Says the Gemara, the principle that the Chachamim instituted is that the bnei ha'ir is that even if the bnei ha'ir cough up to the funds, they say we're happy to pay. We'll pay all the Maseches shekel again. The couriers, the messengers, still have to swear because we have a fundamental principle that we never discharge a obligation for hektish without a shvua. So that says the Korbanei that people don't take money of the Mikdash lightly. Says the Gemara Hefresh Shikloi va'avad, in a case that somebody separated his shekel and it got lost. Rabbi Yochanan teaches us chayiv ba'achrei yusay. You are chayiv in the repayment ad sheyim tzaren legizbar until such time as it until he gives it over to the treasurer, meaning the person of the Beis Hamikdash. So you hifresh your shekel, you separate it, you say this is the shekel that I'm using, and then I lost it. What do I do here? Says Rabbi Yochanan, you need to pay it back. You need to give another shekel until it is handed over to the gizbar. Once it's given over to the gizbar, to the collectors in the Beis Hamikdash, if something happens to it, now it's not your responsibility anymore. Now it belongs completely to the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Shimon Lakish says, "Hektish b'rishus gavaya." That's not true. Hektish b'rishus gavaya b'chol makom shu. You never need to pay it back because hektish, anytime that you say this shekel belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, well, now it belongs to Hashem already. Meaning Hashem is the silent partner, not so silent partner, on the Beis Hamikdash Institute, and it belongs to Hashem. Hashem knows where everything is. Says Reish Lakish, you are not responsible for it because Hashem knows where it is. That's it. You've given it. You've said it belongs to Hashem. You're not using it. It belongs to Hashem. Now it's up to Him. Says the Gemara. Hold on a second, Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Masnisa pliga al Rabbi Shimon Lakish. The Mishnah is dead against Rabbi Shimon Lakish. How could it be? Because the Mishnah told it, B'nei Ha'ir Shekalim Tachtem. The B'nei Ha'ir, in a case of loss or theft, so the messengers are going to swear to the B'nei Ha'ir that they didn't take it, that they didn't lose it, meaning that it wasn't their fault. B'nei Ha'ir Shekalim Tachtem, and then the B'nei Ha'ir are going to have to repay it, which is exactly against Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Because according to Rabbi Shimon Lakish, if we got stolen, okay, so but it belongs to Hashem already, because we gave it over, we already dedicated it. So now the Gemara is going to give some suggestions here. No, this is also because of the Shavos Takana. The same reason that we had said before that midrabanan they have to swear in the case of loss and theft is the same reason that they have to that they have to take more shkalim here because of Shavos Takana. That the replacement has to happen, even though, says Rabbi Shimon Lakish, already belongs to Hashem. You still have to pay up. That's also so that people think don't think lightly about hektish. Says the Gemara, Tani Rishonim Neuflin leTaklin Chatin, V'Ashnim Neuflin leTaklin Atikin. If you end up doubling up on your shkalim because of loss and theft, and then they find it or the thieves return it, so the first ones are going to go into the new coffers for this year, and the second ones are going to go into the old coffers for previous years. So the question is, what's called new and what's called old? Which ones are the first ones? Which ones are the second ones? Reb Pinchas Reb Chia says, Reb Pinchas, the son of Reb Chia, Rabbi Abamari and Rabbi Abamari, they have a discussion about this. Chad Amar, one of them says, the ones that were sent first, those ones are called first. V'charna Amar, and the other one says, the ones that arrived first, those are the ones that are called first. So that's the machlokes. Which ones are called first and which ones are called second? So you would have to say that according to the other opinion, the Charna Amar, that they arrived first, the second ones arrived first, but they knew that the first ones were still on the way. Otherwise, they would have to then switch it, obviously, right? Because then you wouldn't be able to differentiate. The shaila that the Rishonim ask here is, well, why don't you just put them all into this year's treasury? Why do you have to separate them, one into one treasury and one into another treasury? So the Rishonim already point out that this is against the Din Daraisa. The pasuk says, with regards to Shekalim, everybody has to contribute the same amount. Wealthy people are not allowed to give more, and poor people are not allowed to give less, which means that everybody has to have an exactly equal share in all of the karbanos tzibur that are purchased. Which means that if you pour it all into the same pot, so then some people are going to be doubling up on their contributions for this year's karbanos, and that doesn't work. So because the karbanos have to have completely equal shares. So instead, you put it in the coffers from last year, because the coffers from last year are not used to offer karbanos. They're used for better kabayis things, and therefore everybody still has the same share with regards to the shkalim that are used for karbanos. Okay, that is the end of halacha aleph in our parak. Halacha beis of the second parak. Halacha parak beis halacha beis says the Gemara halacha beis masnisin. The Mishnah says as follows: somebody that gives their shekel to their friend, right? I mean, half shekel, hand it over to their friend, and says, "Do me a favor. When you get to the Beis Hamikdash, pop that one in the shafaris, in the coffers for me." And then instead of putting it in for his friend, he put it in for himself. He's like, I'm going to give this for me. I'm Yotzena. If this was already after the truma was taken, meaning they'd already taken out the trumas halishka, so we explained on yesterday's Amud that when the trumas halishka is taken, it is taken on the behalf of the people that have given and the people that haven't given yet. Meaning they take out from the Beis Hamikdash bank, they take out money, taking into account that they are drawing on behalf of the people that have sent their money already, but it hasn't arrived yet. So if he puts his money in the pushka, meaning his friend's money in for himself, at the point in time that it has already been taken, so then that coin already belonged to the Beis Hamikdash, and now he is using it to pay his own Beis Hamikdash dues. Now he has committed the Isser of Me'ilah, and somebody that violates Me'ilah unintentionally is chayv in a carbon as well. Says the Mishnah, "Hashekel shaklai min ha-hekdesh," a person that is a shekel from the hekdesh contributes a shekel from funds that they have already dedicated to the Beis Hamikdash, meaning they were planning on making a donation to the Beis Hamikdash, and then they take some of that for Shekalim. This question comes up differently, but for all questions of tzedakah, somebody wants to know, can I use my Maaser money for X? So in general, as we'll see, anytime that something is already earmarked for a particular mitzvah, you cannot use it for something else. So if something is already dedicated for Bedek Habayis, you are not allowed to now use it for your shekel. That would be a problem. V'nitruma ha-truma v'karva behema, and in such a case that you take a shekel from hekdesh money that you are planning on giving, you've already dedicated to hekdesh, and you give it as a shekel. V'nitruma truma, and truma was taken. V'karva behema, and the behema was put on the mizbech. That meaning they bought the behema and they put the behema on the mizbech. Ma'al. Now you have violated me'ilah, meaning even though this money already was going to the Beis Hamikdash, if you have now taken from the Beis Hamikdash to fulfill your mitzvah Shekalim, once that shekel is used to buy a korban, the korban is now put on the base. It is now put on the mizbech. That would be me'ilah. You have now violated the isur me'ilah, and you'll be chayv korban in that. Mimaiser sheni umidami shvius. What happens if you gave a shekel from your maiser sheni money, or from shvius money, meaning that is monies that has been redeemed. You have Ma'aser Sheni, you have tons of food. You're coming from the Galil, you got tons of food. You can't schlep it all to Yerushalayim to eat as Ma'aser Sheni. So instead, you put it onto coins. You messed up, and then you use one of those coins for your for your Ma'aser Shekel. That's one case. Midmei Shvius, if a person has Shvius, you have a lot of Shvius produce that you can't eat all of your. I mean, it's growing in the field, so you can eat it. You're allowed to eat it. What happens if you have way too much? It's all going to go bad. So what you can do is you can be put that onto money. You can exchange that for money, and then use that money to buy other shvius produce, which has to be finished that year. Says the Gemara, Yochel Kenegdan, which we're going to. It says the Mishnah, Yochel Kenegdan, which we're going to explain in the Gemara at the bottom of the Amud. What exactly does it mean, Yochel Kenegdan? You have to eat corresponding to it, in accordance with the money that you have, the shekel that you have used. Okay, says the Gemara as follows: Hashekel v'chol. With regards to your machatzis hashekel, anantaninon, we have taught, im karu behema, if an animal is brought from the money that you have inadvertently redirected from hekdesh to machatzis hashekel, if an animal is brought, v'tani, and we taught debei Rebbe im nitruma truma, but the Brisa says, not if the animal was brought, but if the nitruma truma, if the kohanim had already withdrawn the sum of money for the korbanos. So at what point in time have you violated me'ilah? At the point in time that the money is drawn with this money intended, or actually when an animal is bought and put on the mizbech, at what point in time do you violate me'ilah? And then the Gemara has a different nusach here, but asking the same question at the end of the parentheses. Man Tana im nitruma hatruma. Who is the Tana that says this brisa of nitruma truma? That at the point of nitruma truma, that is when me'ilah takes place. Says the Gemara Rabbi Shimon. This is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon told us miyad hayim mekav ma'asav v'kahanim zrisim. Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion that the backstep here for a second. In order to be able to run the Beis Hamikdash has to have supplies of lots of different things. They have to have supplies of oil and of wine and of flour for all of the menachos. They also have supplies of animals. At what point in time do the suppliers get paid? Meaning, do they take the money of the Beis Hamikdash? So the Brisa, meaning the one opinion, I mean, it seems to be the opinion of the Tanabe Rebbe, is it only occurs at the point of nitruma truma, but not at the point of the animal being offered. And the Gemara is saying that is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Why? Because there are two opinions here. One opinion is that when the suppliers would provide the flour, for example, they all provide the animals. The Kohanim said, here is the money, but you only take ownership over this money at the point in time that the animal is put in the mizbech, or at the point in time that the mincha is put in the mizbech. Why? So that if something goes wrong with it, the animal turns out to be a balmum, or the flour turns out to be wormy, it goes moldy, or whatever it is, then it wouldn't be something that already belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. It would still be belonging to the suppliers. In which case, the suppliers would have to then reimburse the Beis Hamikdash. They'd have to give more. But Rabbi Shimon says that that's not how they did it. Rabbi Shimon holds, the Amar Rabbi Shimon, miyad hay mekama asav kohanim zrizim him, that the suppliers would take ownership over the money immediately, and the kohanim were very careful to make sure that they checked the inventory, right? They checked the stock as it came in. They were very careful to make sure that nothing went wrong, and therefore, since they were confident that the things that they did inventory checks, they knew that everything coming in was good to be put in the mizbech. The vendors would be able to take ownership over their monies immediately, and in such a case, you don't have to wait until the animal is used in the mizbech, meaning used on the mizbech in the Beis Hamikdash, in order for the monies to have been inappropriately used as me'ilah. That would happen according to Rabbi Shimon immediately. Says the Gemara, v'kasha. This now presents a challenge. If a person stole the olah of his friend and put it on the mizbech, meaning his friend says, this is an olah. He goes, sweet, I also need to take an olah. Steals his friend's animal, brings it to the Beis Hamikdash, offers it as an olah. So, but he doesn't tell anybody about this. That's what I say. So what happens now? Stama lo l'shem ba'adam m'rishon mechaberes. Ostensibly, it works for the first owners. Meaning the fact that another guy brought it to the Beis Hamikdash and was planning on it being for him. So who cares? He brought it. It ended up at the Beis Hamikdash. The owners, before it was stolen, have now fulfilled their mitzvah, bring the olah. They didn't bring it themselves, but the Kohanim are doing it. So it's okay. It works for the Baalim and the guy that stole it. So he's a bad guy, but he really hasn't done anything because it still works for the original owners. So this whole thing becomes now complicated because our Mishnah had said that if somebody takes a shekel from their friend and gives it for themselves, so that they have violated Me'ilah at some point in time. How? They have simply given a shekel that was supposed to be given as a shekel. They still owe their own shekel. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you what happened here. Rabbi Yudin says, Tipatabu Mesuyam. You have to explain that this Mishnah is talking about a case of Mesuyam, where there were certain people, like we'll see Michel Rabbi Gamliel, that they would come to give their shkalim, the household of Rabbi Gamliel, they would come to give their shkalim on the day of the Trumas Halishka, meaning on 15 days before Pesach, they would show up in the Beis Hamikdash, and as the Kohen was scooping up the monies to be used for the Korbanos, they would take their coin and flick it into the pile so that the coin would scoop that up and use that for the korbanos, and that gave them a certain satisfaction. It didn't have any halachic bearing, but it gave them a certain satisfaction that the coin saw that they were putting their coin in and it came from them. So in such a case where somebody sometimes it happens, right? Somebody says, Rabbi, I want you to use this money, that my coins, to buy that. I know it all comes from the same thing, but I want you to use this to pay for that thing. So I know everybody's money is being used for that, but I want to know that gets put in there. Now we should point out that doesn't mean that they get to determine which korban it goes to. That we said every korban belongs to everybody, but they wanted to know that their monies were being used for the korbanos. They like to know that. But if that is true, what that means is that when they flick their coin in, if somebody wanted to do this, but is doing it for themselves, if they're doing it for themselves, so that's where the case would be a case of Me'ilah. Says the Gemara, hold on a second. The Mishnah seems to infer here that we should consider that the shekel ends up being for the shiraim of the lishka. It wouldn't be used for the korbanos if it turned out that the price of animals was cheaper that year, and they managed to buy animals cheaper, and they had leftover funds, so that wasn't used for korbanos. It would be used for the shiraim for extra repairs or whatever else the Beis Hamikdash needed. since when do we have such a concern? V'chi yesh me'ila b'shiraim. But if this was a case of me'ila, meaning we're worried about me'ila, so maybe there would not be me'ila here because there's no me'ila by shiraim. Who says that this has been inappropriately used? Meaning, if there was leftover funds, it wouldn't have been inappropriately used. It wouldn't have been me'ila in the sense that no korban would ever have been purchased with it. So where would there be me'ila? Says the Gemara, it must be according to Reb Meir. Because Reb Meir does actually hold that me'ila does apply to shiraim. You'd have violated me'ila if you had said it was your friend's, you said it was your shekel, but it's your friend's shekel, even if it got used to repaint the walls, not for a korban. Says the Gemara, Oid hi b'masuyim. So we've already established that this is only true with regards to a masuyim, when it was flicked into the pile intentionally. Shel beis Rabban Gamliel shayim miskaven v'tarmai lishmai. So that, like Rabbi Gamliel's family would do, that they would flick it into the pile so that they knew that the kohen was being torim for them as well, that they wanted to do that, and therefore me'ila would apply in such a case, because then it would be very clear that they were offering it as their own and not on behalf of the person that had given that shekel. Says the Gemara, okay, so now you've explained how it could be that there is me'ila, even though it's all going to the same case. What exactly is this me'ila? Meaning, in what way has he benefited once the korban is bought, or according to Reb Shimon, when the lishke is taken, or as we've explained according to Reb Meir, that this was b'muslim, and that this... Where's the me'ila here? How was this used meaning, how was this used inadvertently for the wrong purpose? What have you gained here? Amar Rabbi Abin b'shem Rabbanan de Taman, says Rabbi Abin in the name of the Rabbanan de Taman, in the name of the rabbis there in Bavel, there, over there in Chutz La'aretz, Mikevan she based in ru'in le mashkan v'lo mashkanu, because the Beis Din could have come and claimed his property, and they didn't claim his property because they thought that he had already given. It is commotion, and it is as if he has benefited, because he now knows that they can't come and claim his property because they think that he contributed already. They're not coming for his property. They're not banging on the door. It would seem then, by the way, that this is Blumenthal's question, and we have to be mine, is that based on the fact that Kohanim were not subject to, at least according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, were not subject to a mashkon, it would seem to be that a kohen that did this to a yishol or to another kohen would not be chayv for me'ila, because that would be hard to argue. It would be hard to argue that he's gained anything. He hasn't. So that's Blumenthal's kasha. We have to be ma'ayin further. Okay, says the Gemara. What exactly is this case of Maseches Sheni and Shvius? Says the Gemara Dirshu, because the pasuk tells us, Ach b'char asher yivacher la'Hashem ba'behema. Pasuk says in Vayikra, Ach b'char, with regards, however, regarding a b'char, a firstborn animal, asher yivuchar, that becomes a firstborn, la'Hashem b'behema, the Hashem in the animals, lo yakdish isosai, a person is not allowed to make it kaddish. Once it is a bechar, you can't use it for hekdesh. Says the Gemara, from here we learn kol shu kaddish ein kedusha chal alav. Once something is already kaddish, you cannot use it for another hekdesh purpose. It is already kaddish. You can't use it for something else. That's the tzedakah question. Once it's dedicated to tzedakah, you can't use it for anything else. Says the Gemara, keitzad hu oiseh. So what do you do in this case? That you have used Maseches Sheni money for Shekalim. So what do? Maybe sell a shel chulin, you take a chulin coin, va'omer, and you say, Ma'os Maseches Sheni b'chol makom shehein yu mechulalim al selazu. My Maseches Sheni money, wherever they may be, now gets transferred. That kedusha gets transferred onto this coin. Va'osa sela nitvas l'shem Maseches Sheni, and that coin is now imbued with the kedusha of Maseches Sheni, and now you have to use this for Maseches Sheni. V'ashar nasu shkalim, and the rest becomes shkalim. That's okay. The rest becomes shkalim, and Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. We will continue tomorrow with the next Mishnah at the top of Vav Amud Aleph, and it's a late night after our Haggadah night, at Mamush. So hopefully everybody that was there had a great time.